appreciate everyone attending. The first item on our agenda is a flag salute, so if everyone please join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda.
I believe the agenda is, that we have on the screen is correct. If you didn't print it off this afternoon, you may have an earlier version. So I just want to take a minute to draw your attention. We had some activity this week and we made some changes. So we will have a presentation that wasn't previously on the agenda with the FFA. Got a group here tonight. Look forward to that. We have a discussion item that was added, Lincoln Middle School course offerings. We have a discussion item that was updated this week, the one that regarding naming of facilities. We have an addition of a consent agenda item, an overnight field trip for We Day. And finally, a discussion item was removed from the agenda. We discovered that we had, one of the documents was a early iteration, and we want to make sure we have them right before we bring them forward, so we pulled that one off. So those are the changes, but they are reflected in the current agenda.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as it was presented today.
We do need a closed and executive session.
Correct, okay. We will have a closed.
I move approval of the consent agenda as amended.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as was amended. Please, any further comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda as it was amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried, so that's the agenda we will follow this evening. The next item on our agenda is for visitors. This is a part of the agenda for anyone wishing to speak before the board, either as an individual or as a member of a group. Visitors are addressing the board will be asked to approach the microphone at the podium and state their name, address prior to presenting their information, and visitors are asked to limit their remarks to 3 minutes, and the board will listen but probably not discuss that topic this evening. The board may consider moving that topic to a future meeting date as a discussion item. So is there anyone that would like to speak to the board as a visitor this evening on an issue that's not on our agenda? Yes, would you like to come forward?
I guess I should say maybe if this is on the agenda, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm here as a visitor. My name is Denise Snyder, and I have the good fortune to be the director of the Community Band of the Palouse, as well as the mother of 4 Pullman School District graduates. And so I just want to say thank you for all you do to make the school district such a good place for people to send their kids to school. And the new building is just fabulous, so you must be very happy with this. I want to say this, like I'm here to talk about the naming of the new auditorium, and that we in the community band are hopeful that you will keep the name of the Dana Cleveland Performing Arts Theater for that facility. My oldest son, Christopher, is a recipient of the Dana Cleveland Award, and as I direct the community band, it was founded by him, and we are eager and hopeful that his legacy will be perpetuated through the continuing to name the facility after him. His contributions have affected the lives of many students, some of which are now local pillars of the community. So like Esther Brailsford and Wally Friel were his students, and they contribute greatly to the community, and there's countless other students that have gone on to successful lives. So we're just asking that you please ensure his legacy is continued. The arts community stands on his shoulders in this town because of the work that he did while he was affiliated here. And I also have to say, it's like sports heroes are important to Pullman because we have, this great football team and stuff. But there is a group of unsung heroes in our country, and that is the high school band directors that do work for their students, just like coaches contribute to the character and the success of their students in sports programs. So we hope that you'll continue the legacy of Dana Cleveland by making sure that the auditorium continues to bear his name and that his example is set forward as one to follow for teachers and students alike in Pullman. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Yes, come forward, please.
Thank you for listening to our comments. I'm David Siemens. I've lived in Pullman about 60 years now, and I just want to second the comments of Denise. I started playing in the community band about 40 years ago under the direction of Dana Cleveland, and who was, of course, the founder of the community band of the Palouse, and I sincerely believe that that is a community asset which the community should recognize its founder by continuing the name of the auditorium. For those of you who never met Dana Cleveland, he taught music here in the high school for about 30 years. The band under his direction was a marvelous institution. They marched in just about every parade in Pullman during his tenure. He took the band to Europe for a concert tour. Just did marvelous things. But in any case, I really feel that in memory of him, the name on the auditorium should be continued as it was in the present or previous high school. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Is there anyone else that would like to speak as a visitor this evening? Well, we certainly appreciate those comments, and that's an issue that we will be taking on at a future date. So much appreciated. Thank you. Okay, if there's no one else to come forward as a visitor, we'll move on to our next item on our agenda, which is reports, correspondence, and programs. And the first item is the PHSASB report. Who is going to work on that one?
My name is Mikra Kaupanapai, and I am the junior class vice president.
I'm Linda Zhang. I'm the executive treasurer.
And so last week, or it was a few weeks ago, that we hosted our talent show. We raised about $500, and we are now approaching our goal of $10,000 by $1,500 about.
So, as we probably mentioned before, ASB is currently working on two community service projects. One is local in supporting the Spokane Food Drive, and the second one, which we are raising money for, and that was where the talent show money has been contributed to, is to building a school in another country. And so our next, we're taking that project and bringing it to an event called We Day, in where many different schools come together in celebration of our community service contributions and hoping to work with one another and sort of push each other to greater and better heights. And promise next week, so we will try not to be wild. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anything else going to be presented as an ASB report this evening?
We have leadership materials, but we'll have to wait until then.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Board reports. So we'll start down here with Board Member Susan Weed. Okay. Dr. Everman.
No report this evening.
Dr. Munch-Rotola.
I do have a report. We had the first meeting of the Public Art Selection Committee here at the high school a couple of weeks ago, and I thought you guys would find this process interesting. As you know, we have a number of artworks at various buildings throughout the district that are public art, but this will be our first successful application for the state pooled funds. So all public construction, 1/2 of 1% is designated for the arts, and then schools can apply for that money. And so we have a grant of about $75,000. And the state comes in and guides a committee of local people through a process. Locally, it is determined, you know, what the art will actually be, but the state kind of helps you organize your thinking, facilitates the meetings, you know, what kind of materials, what values will be expressed by the art and that sort of thing. And so I have this little handbook that I thought you might want to just page through. I do want it back, but I did think you would find that interesting. And there will be a series of 6 meetings in total that will probably take about 10 months to get through. The meetings are quite long, 2 to 3 hours per meeting. So the next meeting we're looking at, there's a roster of state-approved artists, and we narrow it down to like 20 approved artists. That's our short list, is getting to 20, where we look more and ask them to actually submit proposals. And once an artist's work has been purchased, then they go off the list for 3 years. So our new elementary school, because it's new construction, is also eligible to participate in this. So I've already made inquiries about when is the next deadline, but I think we definitely want to submit another application and get in on this. Some of the projects which are in this handbook, they show some examples. They're really quite exciting, really enliven the space. So if you have any questions about that process, I can let you know what's going on with that committee. Oh, and I just happened to read, written in stone by noted constitutional lawyer Sanford Levinson, who discusses implications of naming all kinds of public spaces, streets, schools, placement of art, all kinds of issues that we just happen to be dealing with right now. So if anybody's interested in this as well, that's my report.
Wonderful, thank you. I thought I'd just make a quick report that Pullman hosted a District 10 WASDA regional meeting. That's the Washington State School Directors Association, since our last meeting. That brings in people from almost the entire east side of the state, all the different school districts. And we also had...
Sorry.
That's okay. Our executive director, Alan Burke, came over from Olympia also. He used to work in the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. He's very informative as to what's going on in the state and how things are going, and gave a report on, legislative report on the wrap-up for the year and what he thought were successes and the things that didn't go as well. But I think they were duly impressed with the new building and facilities, and enjoyed it very much. And we enjoyed getting to network a little bit with the other school directors in the area too. And I certainly appreciate our administration setting that up and arranging for hosting it. Very much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That concludes my report, so we'll go on to Superintendent's report. Dr. Stern.
Thank you, and I think I will flip this a little bit and ask the FFA group if they want to do their presentation first.
We have one member that's on the way here.
Oh, well, we can go back to the order of the agenda then if you prefer. No problem. All right, so my report has mostly to do with construction updates. That seems to be a large part of our focus these days, trying to get enough classrooms for all these children that keep coming to Pullman, which is a good thing. Pullman High School, you may have noticed when you came in that there was looked like a new wall just in front of the entrance as you come into off of Greyhound Way. They're actually starting to put the footings, well, they put the footings in and they're building the foundation for the concession stand out front there. So that's going to take shape here shortly, is taking shape. There are the two, as you know, we've moved into the front of 3 wings, or the southmost wing is being occupied. Steel is almost completed, completely erected on the middle wing. They're actually putting up studs already. Concrete on the second floor will be poured, should be poured this week. So that wing is taking shape, and footings and forms are going in for the northmost wing. Demolition of part of the math science building has come down, and so that is out of the way, so they can proceed with that northmost wing. And so that demolition work is done, and that building will be completely demolished at the end of the project in January. So Jefferson Elementary School has gotten off to a bit of a slow start. We've had some, of course, it started raining about the first day that the contractors showed up, and we've had intermittent rain ever since, and of course they're doing a lot of excavation, and when you excavate, putting water on that, then it just means you got to excavate down farther. So when it starts raining, that kind of holds that part of the process up. We've also run into some unforeseen conditions there, some bedrock, but actually I think that will probably help us, not hurt us. It's always better to have solid ground underneath than moving ground. So that bedrock's probably not a bad deal, but it was kind of had to redirect some of the work that was being done there. And not really any new movement on the new elementary school. We're moving towards bond sale in May, and we have had quite a bit of interest on the architectural engineering RFQ that's out, and so we look forward to moving forward with that process and identifying a design team for that project, hopefully within the next month and a half. So unless you have questions, that's my report, and I think we are ready for FFA.
Would you like us all talking to the mic, or can we?
Whoever's going to talk it would be best if you can talk into the mic. Otherwise, on the broadcast, you kind of get lost. Your voice gets lost.
I can send her your note.
You can say just probably do this. They speak pretty loud, most of them.
Yeah.
And how
You
this
can
is
just
set
try to
up is,
project.
this contest is it's agricultural issues for them, so they pick an agricultural issue in our area. And they present both sides. You're not supposed to pick a side and say one's better than the other. You're just supposed to equally present both sides and leave it up to the audience to choose.
Okay. We'll just we'll move this around.
It could take a lot longer without running over to the microphone.
I suspect.
It could take a lot
I think the microphones
because
will
it's
pick
kind
it
of
up.
a little dialogue between them. So, and then generally at the end there is 5 minutes of questions. If you just want to give a comment, that's fine. If you're good to go and you want to move on through because it's about 13 minutes, then that's fine as well. Just was giving you a heads up on that. So, but they qualified for state, so this is our state team, and so in a month they'll be presenting at state.
Over the past century, the United States' use of energy has increased drastically. We have become accustomed to a certain style of living that is powered by limited resources that are contributing to the growing issue of pollution. Due to the increased awareness of the harmful effects of fossil fuels, we have turned to the rivers to provide hydroelectricity, which generates energy using water to turn turbines in dams. Hydroelectricity has been looked to more and more in recent years as a safe and clean renewable resource that could help to limit the United States' need as a country to rely on foreign fossil fuels for energy. Washington is currently leading the nation as the top producer of hydroelectricity, with over 45 hydroelectric dams located throughout the state. Initially, these dams seem like a great solution. Water is cheap, its movement is continuous, and it can benefit small local communities. Also, the transportation of grain has been moved off the highways and onto the rivers, reducing carbon emissions from trucks. The dams are a large generator of hydroelectricity, and many are hopeful that it will one day completely replace fossil fuels. However, many environmentalist groups refute the statement that hydroelectricity is a renewable resource, but argue that these dams are disturbing ecosystems in the rivers, and that they should cease to be used as a source of energy, often even petitioning to have the dams taken down. The dams prevent juvenile fish from moving downstream, and they have taken a toll on their populations. The ping-pong match of conflicting viewpoints is blocking the way to a conclusion surrounding the use of hydroelectricity. Should hydropower replace fossil fuels as our nation's primary source of energy? Welcome to Lower Granite Dam. Today we are hosting open tours of the dam, and we have many people visiting us who are both for and against the continued production and use of hydroelectricity. Those for include Chris Carlson, a member of the Palouse Environmental Sustainability Coalition, who is concerned about the environmental impacts of fossil fuels. Isabella Rich, a civil engineer who is here to learn more about the dams in our area and contribute her own insights. And Taylor Roberts, a Palouse farmer who praises the use of dams as they help her shipments of grain. On the other hand, we have Tyler Chapman, a park ranger who is concerned about the effects on wildlife that the dams have. Scott Carlson, Isaac Nelson, the CEO of an oil company, who says that hydroelectricity is less reliable than fossil fuels. And finally, Scott Carlson, a member of the Pullman community who's concerned about the increased taxes that hydroelectricity may bring. Welcome to Lower Granite Dam. I'm Lucy, and I'll be your tour guide for the day. Our first destination is the turbines.
So this is where the magic happens. Water stored in the reservoir behind the dam rushes through a chute called the penstock, down into the turbine, which is forced to turn due to the falling water. It turns a pole that is connected to the generator, and the generator turns, creating electricity. The electricity is converted into a higher voltage and is sent to a transmission grid.
Seems like a lot is riding on the hope that we have enough water. I don't see why we can't just continue to use fossil fuels to power the world. They're much more reliable.
They may be reliable now, but when oil companies can no longer harvest oil, what is the world going to do? We are so advanced in technology now with no other alternatives to fossil fuels, the world will be in chaos.
All right, we can worry about the future when we get there. The United States already uses fossil fuels for 82% of its energy. It would be extremely difficult to make the switch.
But if we do not start to shift, we will eventually have to go through a complete change when there are no more fossil fuels left to be harvested.
Right, oil is non-renewable, which means we will eventually run out of it. And fossil fuels must go through the refinery process before they can be reused, releasing harmful greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Water, on the other hand, is renewable. The water in the river is always replenished from snowfall and rainfall. And this allows for cleaner, much reliable sources.
I see your point, but we already use fossil fuels for so much. We should just continue to use them until they run out, then switch over to sources such as hydroelectricity, little by little, but not all at once.
But wait, the oil business generates a ton of money and employs around 5 million workers. Laying off all those workers would be not only devastating for them as individuals, but also for the economy.
Instead of waiting for fossil fuels to run out, why not get started on using cleaner, more reliable sources? The complete end of fossil fuels is not feasible in the near future. But if we start using cleaner, more reliable sources, we'll be in much better shape when the fossil fuels do run out.
Also, Mr. Carlson, workers and jobs that are ended as we become less dependent on fossil fuels can transition to working for new companies that generate the new types of renewable energy.
Let's move on to the fish ladders.
What even is a fish ladder? I didn't know a fish could climb.
A fish ladder is an apparatus that is used in most dams to ensure safe passage of fish from one side of the dam to the other. There are many different designs, but essentially the fish enters a special opening or passageway, and jets in these passages help move the fish upstream through the dam.
That seems like an awfully difficult journey for those poor fish. Is that why they're all dying?
I'm a park ranger, yet I don't visit these parks very often. However, I do my research, and before non-natives settled here, it was estimated that there are about 3 million fish in the Columbia Basin, but now there are only 1.5 million. This is not only devastating on the ecosystems within the rivers, but also for those who want to use them for recreation. Thousands of people visit my parks each year who want to fish, and if they never catch anything, they won't come back.
Well, I come here often with my family, and the fish seem perfectly capable of using the ladders. I don't think that this could be a reason for their deaths.
In this area especially, people are concerned about the juvenile salmon and steelhead, traveling through the dams to get to the ocean, where they will spend their adult lives.
The juvenile fish have difficulty navigating through these fish ladders, and therefore choose not to waste their energy attempting to make it through.
Right, and the fish then stay where they are, where they eventually lose their ability to switch from freshwater to saltwater.
Really? Because if the fish failed to move upstream, then the cycle would get thrown off due to the fish not returning to spawn. This is why their population is decreasing.
Is there any solution?
Unfortunately, Mr. Nelson, these fish ladders are the best option.
What if? Instead of fish ladders, engineers built small streams that went around the dams so that the fish could move both up and downstream more naturally. This seems like it could help.
Well, actually, those types of streams do exist, and they are called fishways. They do seem like an easy solution, but ladders have been determined a better option, for these waterways are very expensive and difficult to create.
The dams also make it so easy for farmers to ship their grains, especially here in eastern Washington, where farming is a huge part of the communities. The rivers are slowed due to the dams, and farmers like myself have begun using them as a way to get our grain to Portland, Oregon. This way, grain trucks are off the road, creating less traffic and burning less fuel. It's great.
But don't you think the grain might get into the water and mess up the ecosystem?
Sure, but at least it's not all over the highways. Also, a little grain in the water is going to cause a lot less trouble than the hundreds of thousands of tons of pollutants from trucks being released into the atmosphere. Not to mention, the grain industry on the water provides over 40,000 local jobs on the Columbia Snake River system.
Really? That's a lot of jobs.
Yes, the system is a major export gateway. It's the third largest in the world. Our next destination is the control center. This is the real brains of the operation, and workers monitor the activity of the dam and ensure that everything is running smoothly.
That's great, but can we talk about the cost of all this? I am still really worried about what the average taxpayer will be charged in order to keep up these dams.
With fossil fuels, you would not need to worry.
Actually, Mr. Nelson, hydroelectricity from a well-run dam is much cheaper than fossil fuels.
Hydroelectricity from an existing dam costs about a half a penny per kilowatt hour. To implement a new dam is double that at 1 cent per kilowatt hour. I cannot see why consumers would want to buy in on something with such a variable cost.
Well, if you compare the price of fossil fuels at approximately 7 cents per kilowatt hour, there's no denying that hydropower can save taxpayers money.
Well, Ms. Roberts, if we are to be building more dams, the average taxpayer will be paying more. The cost of dams is unpredictable. For example, I read about the Diamer Basha Dam in Pakistan that had a projected cost of $12.7 billion and was supposed to be completed by 2021. But a recent Oxford University study predicts that it will not be finished until 2027. And by then, the cost will be around $25.4 billion. That's a lot of money, and taxpayers like me would definitely be affected by that much of an extra cost entering the equation.
It is certainly a concern, but as I said, taxpayers are charged a very small amount for the new construction of dams, even when they go over the predicted price. And paying 1 cent per kilowatt hour for a few years while a dam is being constructed still seems like a better option than paying 7 cents per kilowatt hour for fossil fuels.
As we near the end of our tour today, I'm sure you've all noticed the large body of water located behind the dam. This is called the reservoir. I love reservoirs. The calmer water makes them great for recreational activities, like swimming, fishing, and for my family especially, boating.
Wildlife should have priority over recreation. A lake forming where there didn't used to be one must have devastating impacts on the wildlife habitats around dams. The animals would have to move as the water built up.
Reservoir buildup happens very slowly, so animals have time to move before the water reaches their habitat.
Even if the reservoirs don't kill the animals, they still have to go somewhere. This sort of relocation could force animals into parks or cities where they could cause harm to themselves or others.
As a member of the Palouse Environmental Sustainability Coalition, I am very familiar with the laws put in place to protect our ecosystems. There are 3 major acts: the Federal Powers Act, the Fish and Wildlife Coordination Act, and the Magnuson-Stevens Act. These acts help to ensure that our ecosystems are maintained.
Well, with all those fancy laws in place, shouldn't their populations be thriving? You can list all the laws you want, but the facts still show that their populations are suffering, and something must be done to protect them.
It is obvious that there are many sides to the issue of hydropower dams, but it is also obvious that the United States and the world are in desperate need of an alternative. So what's the solution? Should dams continue operations as they are, or should they be torn down and outlawed, perhaps be replaced by solar or wind power? As we conclude our tour, let's see if our guests can offer some ideas.
Hydroelectric dams should stay. Despite their impacts, tearing down the dams would cause more harm than good. And we do need an alternative source of energy. However, if these dams are going to stay, there should be tougher guidelines that these operations must uphold to protect both the environment and the economy.
The construction of any new dam should be halted completely until certain issues are resolved. The economical and environmental impacts are way too obvious to ignore.
Because the dams are staying, we may as well take advantage of what they have to offer. Reservoirs should remain open to the public as a recreational and educational resource, and farmers should employ the slowing of the rivers to ship their grain.
Regarding the extreme costs of dams, construction costs should be better calculated to give consumers a clear idea of what it will cost them. Furthermore, construction jobs should be done as much as possible by local construction companies in order to support local economies that are paying for the cost of the dam.
The laws being put in place to protect our ecosystems should be revisited. Lawmakers should make sure that they're doing everything in their power to ensure the long, healthy lives of the animals around us.
From an environmental standpoint, it seems that the architects of dams should communicate more with wildlife conservation organizations such as the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation in order to give them a better understanding of the impact that dams have and how they can minimize that impact.
Thank you for joining our tour today. We hope that your time here has been educational and worthwhile.
This is great.
Thank you.
I really learned a lot.
Given the fact that the Earth is running out of resources, it is essential that changes be made in order to ensure a healthy and safe environment for future generations. A complete switch from fossil fuels to hydroelectricity is not feasible in the near future, but slowly relying more and more on renewable resources can help us work toward a safer and healthier environment. However, we also have to consider the well-being of the ecosystems that are affected by by both types of hydroelectricity. It is essential that cooperation and communication are used to resolve both current and future conflicts. Thank you.
Do you have any questions or comments? I have a quick comment. Very good presentation. Appreciate it. I don't think this is an issue that we're going to solve anytime soon. But I did notice you didn't mention smolts being barged down the river. At least I didn't remember hearing about it. And the other issue was sea lions and cormorants that are killing the salmon as they go up or down the river, which also contributes to the issue of. Did I mishear anything? Or?
No,
we didn't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
mention that, but that would be a good thing to put in there. Thank
So they barge the baby fish
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
down
Down there, they catch them at the dams and barge them down the river so that they don't have to get damaged going through turbines.
Actually, we visited Lower Granite Dam last week, and they're building a new addition. So they're kind of making a slide so that the fish would be redirected into a different channel, and then they would be. It's kind of like a giant water slide down to the fish facility, and then they're added onto the barges and moved down to the last dam, so they don't have to. There's much less risk because each dam has about a 96% survival rate. So that way, they only have to get through that one dam to make it all the way down to the river, and they move them so they don't have to go through all of them.
I didn't hear anything about global warming and the water temperature overall starting to increase. Would that have effect on fish survival?
Yes, totally.
Yeah, if we thought about putting something about that in there, but we decided not to just because we wanted to focus more on the dams. Did we talk about that? Yeah, I think we were trying to keep our focus more on hydroelectricity, but that's a valid point.
Well, our ranger made a big point about
Yeah.
the population being cut in half,
Yeah.
which is very convincing.
Isn't it, don't they have some big island in the river where a lot of the cormorants live and they just feed off the salmon?
Yes, they do. I don't remember the name or
I don't
location of it.
know.
That has been an issue.
right, well, thank you for letting us present to you.
Thank you guys very much.
It's gonna be hip, it's gonna totally catch on.
Kind of wonder where that vest has been.
I think it's awesome.
Oh, really? Oh, fun.
Isn't that so cool?
So it's been around.
Yeah, it's been in field, in field.
All right, very good. We appreciate that presentation. This is very enlightening. Dr. Stern.
Yeah, we have one more, Bob.
Just an informational item. Yesterday, we had our group meeting for any parents that were interested in starting a highly capable parent group in the area. And so we had 10 people show, and a parent indicated interest in joining the committee as a parent representative. So I'd just like to let the board know that we've had an initial gathering to see if there was interest in starting that. So just give me a quick update on it.
All right. That concludes our first correspondence in program. Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. We use a consent agenda as a board to expedite business. The board approves the use of the consent agenda, which includes items considered to be routine in nature. Any item that appears on the consent agenda may be removed from the consent agenda by any single member of the board and voted on separately. The remaining items will be voted on by a single motion. Of course, tonight's consent agenda consists of the minutes of our previous meetings, personnel reports, professional service contracts, transfer requests, and expense warrants, plus an overnight field trip request. Does any member of the board wish to pull any item off that consent agenda?
I will move that we approve the consent agenda as shown this evening.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried. Consent agenda is approved as presented. Thank you. That brings us to item number 7 on our agenda, which is action items. The first item on the action item list is the resolution 151608, transfer from general funds to capital projects funds. To present that is our Executive Director of Support Services, Dan Humpel.
Thank you. Just quickly, I'd like to say I think we've had an honor in the fiscal office with SIPC, which is Washington School and Information Processing Corporation Cooperative, recommended to Barrow School District, which is the North Slope of Alaska, to come down and work with Diane on Skyward, the possibility of bringing Skyward into their system up there. And 2 of them flew down from Barrow, and they were in our office today, and they'll be back tomorrow morning. And it's an honor to be recognized like that across the state. So I know I must have had something to do with it, but I just can't zero in on anything. So it's an honor for Diane to be recognized like that. So thank you for that. General fund transfer at the last meeting, we presented to the board the need to transfer $975,000 from the general fund to the capital projects fund. We come tonight and ask the board to approve that by resolution number 151608. Whereas it is in the interest of the school district to transfer $975,000 from the general fund to the capital projects fund to support the Jefferson Elementary classroom expansion, fund the Sunnyside roofing project, and to address additional potential capital needs in the school district. And so tonight we ask the board to consider approving that resolution 151608 tonight so that we can move the dollars to the capital projects fund.
Comments or questions, discussion?
Just a question on the Sunnyside, when might that start?
And we'll bring that to the board tonight in discussion, and I'll give you some information on that. but it will, I'll just tell you that tomorrow we have contractors on the roof, so I'm hoping that it's not raining too hard, but we will have interested contractors tomorrow, and I'll provide some more information just shortly to you. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Any other comments, questions, or discussion?
I would move that we approve the transfer of $975,000 from the general fund to the capital projects fund as set forth in resolution 1516-08.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded that the board approve the transfer of $975,000 from the general fund to the capital projects funds as set forth in resolution 1516-08. Any further comments, questions, discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the standing motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Dan.
Thank you.
Brings us to the PHS leadership class discussion issue. To present that is Dr. Robert Maxwell, Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We were bringing this back again. Appreciate last time we met and reviewed this recommendation and proposal. We had quite a bit of healthy discussion and feedback, which I appreciate from students as well as staff. With that, we went back and took another look at our proposal. And on the screen, you can see, I'm going to come down just a little bit, where the red underline is our revised language that we thought we'd bring back to address the comments and concerns that were expressed at our last meeting. So what we're looking at was starting with the class of 2018. So we're adding basically two things. One would be a grandfathering clause for those students currently as juniors, and also if a scheduling conflict existed, there is a waiver process that can be executed with the building principal. So given what we heard at our last meeting, we tried to build in some pieces to help address those situations that may come up, especially when students have already kind of planned their graduation pathway, as well as if there were a conflict with a class that they needed to take, there would be a process where they could go to the principal and ask for a waiver not to take the leadership class. And remember, this applies only to executive officers. It is also our belief that by grandfathering in, it will allow that class to get a start, and we would grow that expectation and excitement for students to plan to take that as a part of their course pathway when they become a senior and or possibly in their junior year would take that class. This class is really designed to be an active working class to get the work done, so that it helps not only develop those leadership skills, but actually provides time built within the school day to allow students and executive officers to get that work done. So we'd like to propose our our new proposal regarding the leadership class, regarding that piece regarding executive officers and that requirement.
Normally it's appropriate to get the motion on the floor and then discuss it and take action. So I think I'll ask it to be put on the floor this time.
I would move approval of the leadership class.
Kate's a second.
No, I still have so many questions about it. I don't.
I'll second it then. So, Liz,
Okay.
all right. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the leadership class for the 2016-17 school year. And just for clarification, most meetings, as chairman does not vote or participate. On a small school board, it's considered a committee where the chair does take an active role and can make motions, can second motions, and so forth. So you don't think that I just did something wrong. All right, so we're going to open it up for discussion, and we expect a healthy and rigorous discussion.
I just have a clarifying question.
Certainly.
So we really appreciate the changes that you made to reflect some of our concerns, but one thing that's not clear to me from this is, would a student be required to take this every year that they're involved in executive leadership? Or like if I took the class as a freshman, would it still count when I'm an executive as a senior? Since it is planned as a collaboration course, it would seem that you would have to take it every year you serve as an executive, but also that seems like those requirements would add up, especially if it's not really fulfilling a credit. So can you clarify that for me?
Great, I'd be happy to, and I'll Aaron Willie is here in the audience, so and Principal Joe Thornton is also here, so if they want to address that, you're more than welcome to, so.
Yeah, I can definitely clarify it. So hi, I'm Erin Willie. Sorry, I came from track, so that's why. But so the idea is that most likely that someone is a junior or senior who is going to be on executive ASB, and so we're hoping, we're actually in the process right now to have it be approved as a CT credit. We should know in the next month if it is officially a CT credit. But the idea is that you would take Project Management 1, Project Management 2, similar that you would take Spanish 1, Spanish 2. So it would still count as other credits if you decided to do exec more than 1 year. But yes, the idea is that we would want exec to be a part of the class, not necessarily because we're forcing people to take a class, but more or less because we have found that students who are on ASB tend to be the students who are active in a lot of things. And so the idea is that it gives these kids an opportunity to be a positive participant and have time to not feel overwhelmed, and having this in class and learning the leadership skills and honing in on their leadership skills if they take it for a second year. It is kind of the reason why we would like to require executive board to be in the class. You want to add?
Well, I can just add to that, there are several situations where we do a similar thing. An example of that, for a student to be involved in pep band, they have to be involved in concert band the same year they're in pep band. If they're in concert band as freshmen, they can't do pep band for 3 more years after that, because that's where the work of pep band gets done, is in that class. Similar to orchestra, if a student wants to do orchestra performances, they need to be in orchestra class. And we have classes that have multiple layers. A great example of that is Doug Winchell's broadcasting class. He has 1 broadcasting class, but he has several students who will take that multiple years. And the work that they get to do that second year, that third year, is layered on top of what they've done before. They take on projects, they take on some leadership responsibility. So we have situations where we're doing similar things for students, asking them to repeat a course in order for them to be involved in a particular thing.
And might add, the curriculum is set up so it doesn't have to be the same exact thing every year. And that's why I truly love this curriculum, is that it allows me to differentiate to different leaders. A freshman in leadership class is going to get something completely different than a senior in leadership class. And that's kind of my goal with the class, is that yes, there are certain things that we all do as a group, but if you are applying for jobs and you're planning on going into the business world as a senior, it's going to be a completely different idea than someone who is a freshman setting up your idea for how you're going to go babysit, or different activities and stuff. So I like it because I can differentiate in my curriculum, and I think that is really important to students.
But it seems to me like it's 2 separate entities. In other words, you need to teach the leadership skills and then put them into action. So I don't understand how you can be doing that all at one time and then.
No,
But I'm thinking,
very valid question.
You do it like a half year skills, and then the second semester you put it into action, but then
No.
I can't figure out how.
Incredibly valid question. I think I understand where you're going with this. So, the idea is that the idea of how I'm setting it up is going to be like on a point system, and there's certain activities that students can do around the school to get a certain amount of points, whether that's being involved in going to different community events, whether it's volunteer work, that's however we want to support our community, whether local school community or outside Pullman community. So there's that entity. What I have noticed from my previous work at other schools is that ASB are usually the kids who are very involved right? Because those are the kids that you
Sure.
want in ASB because they're fabulous students and you want them involved. Fabulous students, you want them involved. If,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
right? Absolutely. And so the idea is that, yes, we are training all the students to be leaders. And a lot of these like younger students may never not have thought they could be leaders. And so I'm hoping to kind of trick them into being leaders, for lack of better words, because it's about 7 o'clock and it's been kind of a crazy day. But on the same token, actually allow those student leaders to get the work done that they need to in class. And so the idea in a perfect world, you would be able to host ASB meetings in that class, at least for the executive board to be able to go through some issues in class. So then they don't have to round up each other outside of school. They don't have to. So it would be great for the other students to be a part of ASB who maybe never thought they could be a part of ASB or could be a part of, well, I guess everyone's a part of ASB, but be a part of the actual decision-making process. So that's really the goal of the idea. So there are, yeah, you're absolutely right. There are 2 entities working at once. I don't know if you've ever walked by my classroom, but there are like millions of entities walking by at once. I'm kind of used to working in that situation.
Well, and you start thinking about it, though, it seems to me a lot of the stuff that these kids would do, especially like Spirit Week and that sort of thing, come at the beginning of school when they haven't had the class.
So absolutely. So the Spirit Week entity is like a small portion of my curriculum.
Right.
Like so in the fall, the biggest events would be homecoming, which I would like to make a much more exciting event than it is.
Yes.
Because at every other school our size, it is a much bigger event. And we're working towards that. It was much better this year. I would like to keep going that way. There's homecoming. We don't recognize like artists or band members or athletes as well as I think we should, especially on like senior nights. And so that would be a lot of what kids are working on as well. Like those are big events, I guess. In that time period, there's also like a winter dance that the kids would be. So those are like main events, so they get real world leadership experience. But on the flip side, the beginning of the year, we're going to work on how to market ideas. We're going to be working on how to like brand ourselves when we give announcements, or brand and become a like leader within your own student community. And so like, yes, they're going to be working on these events, but it's also working on actually becoming a real leader, I guess, is kind of, so it kind of flips. So I'm using these as ways for them to practice things they've learned in class.
So if a student has taken this class once, then they don't really have to take it again, do they?
Well, so the idea is then, like, so if a kid does, if it takes it once, so if I say I have a freshman take it, and then their senior year they decide to run for exec, then by that time they would have to take the class in theory. So, well, for freshman, yeah, so you would take it and be called Project or Leadership 2 would be the idea. And so that student would be working on like more intense projects with me about like leadership skills. So they would probably be doing a lot more presentations for the class. They'd be working on a lot more like budget, like focus. I teach economics right now, so I'd probably, selfishly I'd be throwing in some of that as well. So it would be the same idea, but a lot more intensified. It's kind of like when you take Spanish again, right? You have, yes, you're learning new words, but so much more in an intense space. And so that is kind of my goal with it. In a perfect world, a kid would want to take it again. I want kids to want to take it again.
Our concern, of course, is the number of credits that you have, and there's so few
Absolutely.
options for our students to begin with that to require them to take the same class again, it's just a frustration now.
Oh, no, I completely understand. What I have found is that there are so many students that like have free periods that don't, like they've taken so many credits, like it's been fabulous, they can take so many credits at the middle school that when they get to the high school, like especially by the time they're juniors and seniors, like I have many students that were like, oh, I was going to have a free period and I'm taking your leadership class instead because that seems like I can actually be a part of the school. And so it allows students to actually like, and there are certain kids that, are busy. Like there are certain kids that are going to be busy. And that's where I really like the fact that they can get a waiver from the school principal if they want to be on exec. my hope too, and what I've found at this school versus any other school I've ever worked at, is that, my goodness, these kids think they can take on the world. And I've never seen kids busier than the students we have at Pullman High School. And like, I teach AP English as well. And I have a couple students that look like they're in tears every day because they just have so much that they've put on their plate because they think that they need to do that. And so, in a way, I hope it allows them to kind of go, maybe I should make a decision and be healthy. And selfishly, I look at some of these, especially some of these seniors who are graduating, and the juniors especially, because they're the ones that have the hardest class load, in my opinion. Sometimes I think it's good for them to learn to make that decision, so when they become adults and they have to make that decision, especially in college when you have so many different options, that we've kind of almost helped facilitate that a little bit as well. So like on the flip side, like yes, absolutely, I think the waiver is good, but I also think it's good for them to know that they can make a decision, and that's okay. Like they don't have to do everything, and they're still fabulous human beings and still very wonderful students, I guess. So that's kind of my thought process on it. And yeah.
Susan, if I can just add real quickly, it's the vast majority of seniors have a free period in their day.
But we're looking at a 24 credit diploma.
We are looking at a 24 credit diploma, correct. And I think the vast majority of seniors still have a free period in their day. Most juniors do not. We really dissuade juniors from having a free period. But many seniors have slots in their schedule. And traditionally, there are exceptions. There are exceptions to this, certainly. But traditionally, all of the exec council is seniors. There are exceptions to that occasion, but they're traditionally seniors. Dr. Maxwell, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you.
Can I say something? My name is Robbie Allen. I'm the executive vice president. I'm a junior, actually.
He's an exception.
Yeah, but besides that, my confusion is with taking the class. I guess you have to be in concurrent enrollment with the class to be an executive. So if you take it freshman year and you run for exec, senior year you need to take it again. But my confusion is for leadership. If they were to take it again, they would be in leadership 2 and be endowed with greater responsibility. And so that's on the basis that they remember all of the skills they learned in leadership 1. So if they are in exec council for that senior year, that means that they still be under the assumption of having all those skills from leadership 1.
Also, I think, like if you're talking, if there's a grade based on out-of-class activities, that kind of takes away the purpose of taking away out-of-class collaboration time for the execs. If there are community service and sports and school events that they're going to have to be going through for their grade, I think that kind of takes away from the purpose of reducing that out-of-class collaboration time.
I also think that the leadership class is valuable in creating leadership skills, but if we want executive leaders with those leadership skills, I think that like having taken the class in the past, when those skills are needing to be developed, will create more prepared people, and I think that there are also alternative ways to create that. I mean, I think that the class is valuable, but not exactly in the way it seemed. Exec doesn't really have meetings that we do separately. Particularly, we have ASB meetings where we meet all together.
We
And
create
I also
assignments for each other too.
I also fail to see the problem specifically that this would address, aside from like me dressing up during Spirit Week. I think that ASB has taken on huge projects. I think we've done so very successfully, and I don't think that this is really fulfilling the things that it needs to do. I think that we've been successful at doing those. I do have a free period. I fill that time with things like planning the booster auction. So I think that even though you could possibly take this, I think that it's really only adding on more responsibilities, and I don't think it addresses a specific problem in our executive leadership.
I would also like to contribute that this year has been, I think, one of the most successful years that ASB has worked. Not bragging, but as a student, I haven't been on exec. I have never been on ASB council except for this year, and for the past 3 years, these people have actually been on every single year, and I've never really understood what ASB was what they were doing. But this year, as Daisy is president, not to toot her horn, but she is been so dedicated and so motivated into promoting all these events. And I think I agree that Pullman High School has fabulous students and fabulous students who do all these activities that want to do ASB. And one of the reasons why I want to do ASB was as president of DECA Business Club, as captain of the science team. I felt like our concerns as a small growing club, as a club that was getting our funding slashed, even though we ranked 16th nationally each year, I wanted to be on ASB to address certain issues and to be part of the school, and that is why I joined. But if I were to take and required to take the class, I would not do ASB. This year, I'm actually a junior at WSU, 90 credits, going to transfer to UW, honors college, and I'm sorry, I'm to the dark side. But I've actually been taking 3 classes at the high school and 3 classes at WSU, so I am involved with the school and I'm not like in the ether out there. If someone were to tell me I have to take this class, I wouldn't want to be on ASB. And unfortunately, not many people want to be on ASB. This year for EZAC Council, we've only had 1 person run for each position. I ran unopposed. I had my sheet, I gave it around to my math class. Robbie could attest to that. They all signed it, and next day I was on the list and I attended ASB meetings. And I'm worried that if we pass this, we're either going to have everyone on EZAC get waivers, or we're going to have no one run at all.
I think that the leadership class, kind of like what Linda says, would help to create a bunch of people who would hopefully run for ASB positions, which would only increase the caliber of our ASB leadership. But I just think that the requirement for executive council isn't really addressing that problem. Once again, like, that's the statement that I have to make. I think that we've been very successful, and I would like to see a lot more people want to get involved, with the leadership class would help with. But once you're in executive council, I feel like leadership skills are often already there, and I think that the project management is going on successfully.
Also, we kind of outlined it in the document that you guys should have. We talked about some of our reasoning, but also students who are involved and who are taking challenging courses and who are involved in extracurricular activities are the kind of people that we want representing the student body on the ASB. Because we have so many people who are involved in a lot of things, but that gives us perspectives from science team and the soccer team and math team and knowledgeable and all those different people and all the different types of students. And I think that that's really valuable, having those students who are involved in a lot of things and who have a lot of background and who can see that perspective. So I think that having students who are highly involved is a benefit, and I think it does make us stronger. And I think forcing those students to decide between taking a class so I'm an FFA, you might have, so if I were to run for executive council this year, I would have to either drop my ag science class, calculus, or physics. And I just don't think that that's a decision that students should be forced to make a place for leadership in their schedule.
On the other side, I will say that when my son was in school here decades ago, they did have a leadership class, and there was a lot more student involvement than there is now. It's sad to see the amount of student involvement that has dropped in this school over the years, and we worked hard, and that class was very successful. I think part of the problem is requiring it again and again. I mean, the option should always be there, but I would think you would want it to be anybody interested, have it open to juniors and seniors, but I think it should be a freshman, sophomore class because they are the ones more interested in maybe starting to get involved. I think requiring it again is going to be difficult because we just don't, I mean, these kids have so few options of other things they can take in school. And once you get to college nowadays, it's just hard to find all these other classes. So this is about where you learn what's out there and what's available. So I need to just destroy it. Talk to Dean, I'm just babbling.
Well, I don't really, to be honest with you, I do believe that the ASB has, they've been very successful this year, especially from the student standpoint. Our FFA has been very successful so far this year, but there's also a lot of things behind the scenes that I don't think people really understand. So from the student's perspective, from what they see, look what we've done, but there's a lot behind the scenes. So as far as books, keeping the books, as Ms. Willie was saying, the economics piece of it is huge. You're keeping that budget the entire year. Keeping track of what you're spending things on, not only raising the money, which is, I think you guys have done a phenomenal job on that this year, and I praise you for that. I think it's been awesome. But logistically, even with, there's all those fine-tuned pieces, you know, not only just getting purchase orders, but getting van requests, bus requests in. There's all those behind-the-scene things that is put on the ASB advisors, the whatever, which really, to be a full learning experience, should be on the students. And with the leadership class, and I'm not saying it needs to be offered every year, I haven't paid close enough attention to see how that would work. But there needs to be people on that executive council that are making those decisions and actually doing that paperwork, because that's how the real world works, and that's what we have to do. Just from my perspective, I mean, I think we do have amazing kids, and they do so many things, but sometimes I think as advisors, we enable them, and they don't see, it looks really easy from their point, because they don't always see all the things that we do for them, whereas with this class, they would take some more ownership in that.
I agree with that point. I think that it's true there is a lot on the logistical side that sometimes we miss out on. However, I think that there's also sometimes a lot that we're doing that's not seen. I've heard complaints that ASB members aren't at ASB events, which is completely false. I don't know where this is coming from. We do have ASB members at every school-wide event, even ones that aren't ASB sponsored, and so I think that we, like, in terms of Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader, you saw the event, we met like all the time, we did all of that work, and so I think that ASB is doing more than maybe the school board is realizing, or maybe some other people, because I've just heard a lot of things that are completely untrue. And so I think that
I'm not saying that, I know what you guys do.
But like from other sources, and so I think that, I mean, if there is a huge problem of which I am not aware and have not been informed, maybe a good step would be to talk about it first, to come to the ASB, say, hey, this is a problem, and then give us time to adjust it rather than instituting a class requirement immediately.
We need to make a decision on this. So, has everyone been able to say what they wanted to say? Jim?
When we met after we tabled it last meeting, I think the key phrase here, the student can request a waiver from the school principal. I mean, that's,
It says for
It's only for required.
course. Well, okay, but nonetheless, that's what we inserted in there, those recommendations. So, how would you, Joe? How would you proceed giving a waiver? What precedent or what criteria would you use?
It would be based on if taking the course, which is most likely going to be offered one period, but at Cheney High School, when they started offering a leadership class again, which at Cheney High School actually they require every ASB officer to be in the class. At Cheney, that class has grown to 2 periods. I envision this is going to be 1 period, at least for the near future. So if that being in that class created a conflict with another class the student had to take for graduation or college admission, then I would look at providing them that waiver.
That's not what the words say at this point, though. And ag science, calc, and physics are all
They're all elective
required
courses.
classes.
And I think that doesn't take, since it only says required courses, that doesn't take a lot into consideration.
And I don't, even though a student might be taking calculus, and at that point in time, calculus is an elective, because they've already met their 3rd year of high school math. In our world, we don't really consider that an elective, because any college-bound student we want taking math. So that's not really an elective.
So you're saying
An ag science class is not an elective, because ironically, in order to be an FFA, in order to be a participant in FFA,
you have to be in an ag science class. So that would not be an elective.
So as a senior, if I were to apply for a waiver with calculus, physics, ag science, and then 3 required courses, I would be able to accomplish that?
But that's not what the wording says.
Yeah, the wording says required graduation course, which,
None of us are.
that, yeah.
Again, I know that we strongly disagree on this, but I think that a lot of these problems, I think that many executive students, not every single one, would qualify for this waiver, and I think also develop these leadership skills. So once again, I think that while the leadership class is valuable, I just think that the executive requirement imposes all of these issues which are not fully addressed or covered in this wording. And so at this point, I just don't see how, with all these questions remaining, this class requirement is a good idea.
I have another question. Dr. Maxwell, I'm sure you could answer this. Is the waiver for participating in other leadership activities like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts still there? Because from the part, like, I can see
That was mentioned at the
it's not there.
No, it's not there.
It's not there.
No.
Okay, so the reason I bring this to attention is I'm the senior patrol leader of Troop 444. I've been it for over a year. Now, this term has only been 6 months. I'm about to get my Eagle Scout. I have 2 letters of recommendations in and going to have a Court of Honor. I don't see why I need this leadership class to teach me
And
how
yes,
to
3 years
lead.
experience on AS.
I've been a Boy Scout since 6th grade. I've led my service project. I've led the troop in a scout-led troop where we plan all the activities and I plan what we do at the meetings. I don't see why I'd still need a leadership class to teach me how to lead.
Well, I think it looks like you're not required to take the class, according to the way I read this right now. If you're an ASB officer, you're not required to take the class that year. You just had to have taken it.
No, they want us to take it when we're on.
No. But it's not read that way.
Yes.
It's not read that way at all. It says you have to have had the class. It doesn't say because you're holding an office.
It doesn't say either way, though, particularly clearly. And I think it's open to interpretation, and I'm afraid that once we pass it, the interpretation has got to be clarified one way or the other in a way that wasn't made specific here.
Okay, well, we've heard from everyone.
I'm reading it one way.
Thank you.
Anything else?
This has definitely been a healthy debate. I feel like it's a round 2 of the FFA presentation on a different subject. So I do appreciate and I understand the concerns on both sides, and this is something that we don't take lightly, but I do believe having it be an active class is an important part of that. We did try to build in some pieces to help address predicted needs, but it's always hard to predict what might happen in the future. And so we try to take into consideration the students' input. And again, it's a choice and a decision, and sometimes those choices and decisions are very hard to make and a very passionate topic. So I appreciate everyone that's presented here tonight and shared their opinion.
I don't know how it works wise, but can we approve the course but not approve the requirement?
You can choose to amend the motion to approve the class by inserting that. Why? We can consider that.
See, I would approve the class in a minute, in a heartbeat, yeah, and for the 2016-2017 year. Maybe after next year, or halfway through next school year, we look at it and decide this should be a requirement. But we've got to be able to understand what it is and the reception, and right now it's an emotional argument one way or the other, I think, and so.
I have to say, just because I haven't spoken on this topic, as a parent, looking at my student coming in class of 2020, they have a grand total of 3.5 credits of electives. And that would include the calculus, the physics. And I would, as a parent, I would be
personally, if we choose to go ahead and vote yea or nay, I would vote in favor, but simply because I want to see the class offered. It provides a tremendous benefit, and it's not locked in stone. I'm sure that if it needs adjusting in the future, that we can do that. And I guess I have a great deal of trust in our administrators that they will accommodate any situations that might cause turmoil and frustration to people. But that's the reason I guess I'm in favor of enacting this, improving the leadership plans. So we have several different directions we can go. We can either propose a motion to postpone it, or we can propose a motion to amend what you see up there, or we can defer it to the next meeting. But we do have a motion on the table to approve it as it's written, but that motion can be amended. Or, of course, there's several motions that take precedence over this main motion, which are to postpone it or to lay it on the table.
I would move that we amend it to approve the class but not the requirement for ASB officers.
I would second the motion to amend.
Move second to amend the motion of putting leadership class to strike out the requirement. How would you like that said? Let's see.
You could strike out everything in the sentence with red. Or you could stop after this class. This course would be open to all freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, period.
That's where it fit in. And then any kind of requirement is.
Or you could say encouraged for all ASB executive officers.
We could do that. I mean, that, they make that one. I just like to get the class going, but
Yes.
I just absolutely love the requirement.
So you'd like to strike everything after open to all freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors?
Right.
Okay. Any further comments, questions, or discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the amendment of striking everything after the word seniors, please signify by saying aye. All opposed, nay. Nay. We have time.
Perfect.
Carl said we could call. He said he'd be standing by if we needed his vote.
This brings us back to the main motion, which is to approve the leadership class for the 2016-17 school year. It would be appropriate at this time to postpone it to the next meeting or table it. Otherwise, we can vote, and I know what's going to happen, we're going to tie vote.
Yeah, I would guess.
Well, we're still open for discussion.
Yeah.
Bob, have you heard enough information tonight to massage this, or is it kind of what an impasse?
You know, there's always a possibility of trying to do it, but we keep putting a lot of work and keep bringing it back. So I'm not sure if it's worthwhile taking it back and changing it, given the perceptions of and the feelings of both sides. So.
But it just changes it so much by making the requirements. I mean, it becomes sometimes a real kind of an unreasonable expectation for some students, and you want as many to participate in the class, I would think, as possible.
We do. In most leadership classes, it is a requirement for all ASB officers.
Yeah,
We took the route of only executive officers. Again, trying to build in a waiver, also trying to build in a grandfathering clause so it wouldn't impact current seniors or or soon-to-be seniors next year, the juniors. So trying to build in a little bit of flexibility to give us a year with this to see how this would operate. Of course, we can always come back at the board's request or the principal's request to take a look at adjusting it. It's our help that we want to build this class, and so we tried to listen to the feedback and build in some pieces to address issues that will come up. I also have a student that this would impact. So, but
I think some of the biggest question is that if you're holding an ASB office, you have to take the class during that time. That's what some people are reading it that way. I'm reading it.
I see, yeah, I see how you see it.
I mean, you may hold an office, and if you've taken the class, you've taken the class.
Yeah.
So there's two different ways that it's being read, and I think
Correct.
that needs to be clarified so people know.
I'll be happy to, I'd be more than glad to take it back and try to rework some language and bring it back to you. That's,
What is your interpretation?
my interpretation is that it would be required for those executive officers.
But required while they're in office or required as preparation for holding an office?
I think ideally when they are holding an office, but again, there may be a conflict with another class, but it would be my hope that they at least have taken that class once.
If the emphasis is on in-school collaboration, though, that doesn't affect it.
My hope is that
It changes the purpose.
Well, I'm just trying to clarify what that's saying. 'Cause
Sure.
I'm reading it as completely different. I'm reading it as if you could have, and that's the way it used to be when Bill was, if you'd had the class, then you could hold an office.
So Bob, would it be accurate to say all ASB executive officers are required to be enrolled in this
Yeah.
course?
That's what you have.
I think that would be accurate,
Okay.
unless I'm off.
I think that's the intent.
That's the intention, yes.
I just thought it was, if you'd had the class, then you're qualified to be an ASB officer. That's the way I read it. So, Joy.
I have one. So if it's enrolled in the course, there's going to be a lot of people who take the Leadership 1 class, or I don't know if it's called Leadership, but the first level class at the time of their executive position. But if we look at it the other way, that means that going into the executive position, they have not learned the leadership skills that the leadership class can teach them. So in a way, it'd be better if it was required before at least, because then that way they have these skills going into the executive class. Now, that's not the way this is written, but having it enrolled at the same time just wouldn't make as much sense, I guess.
I can see both ways like that. And this is a classic case of parliamentary procedure where you should never have a committee or a board that is even numbers because you can't come to a conclusion or decision. Maybe that's the reason that we have a full board. Right. So as Superintendent Stern suggested, that maybe there's some reason to table to another meeting.
Do I move to table it?
Yes.
Okay, I move to table it.
Second.
And we would say that the table is issued until another meeting when we have a full board. Comments, questions, discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All those in favor of tabling it to another meeting, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. All right, it is tabled to the next meeting when we have a full board.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate all your work on that, Dr. Maxwell, and I'm sure we'll continue to discuss that.
Thank you very much.
We know we just got the documents due before, but if you want to look at those, we would encourage that too, because that kind of outlines all of our perspectives.
We certainly appreciate that. I got through part of it before the meeting started, and that's a very good point there.
Also, the ASB would like to thank you for taking your time to discuss this with us. I know that oftentimes the school board doesn't really have contact with students, and so the fact that you even make contact is phenomenal, and we are very gracious of that.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to share your opinions.
All right, we can move on to discussion items from here. Number 8 on our agenda, under 8 is a Sunnyside Roof project, and to present that issue is our Executive Director of Support Services, Dan Harnfeld.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Dr. Everman brought up the fact he was interested in the Sunnyside Roof project, and we're at this point now in discussion where we can address that. As I mentioned before, we've got contractors that'll be on site tomorrow for a pre-inspection of the project, and we'll have a ladder out there at 3:30 in the afternoon and get them up on the roof, and we hope that we have several contractors turn out to show an interest in that project. We will open bids on April 21st. We will announce the bids the week of April 9th and 16th in the newspaper. Open bids on the 21st, and we anticipate seeking board approval at the next board meeting. So we look forward to that day when we do open bids for that project, and we can get that underway as soon as school's out. So that's what we proposed, the sequence of activity, and hope that it works that way. Any questions at all on the Sunnyside Roof project before us? Okay. So we'll keep you posted, and hopefully have a good day tomorrow to get people on the roof, and we'll proceed from there. So thank you. Yeah. We'll have umbrellas.
Get them up on that roof.
Yeah. That brings us to item B under discussion items, which is the 2016-17 PHS course offerings. To present that is Dr. Maxwell.
Thank you. Once again, it's that time of the year where we bring before you the course offerings for both Pullman High School and Lincoln Middle School, and I apologize in advance for them being separate. Usually I combine them into one executive summary. However, with spring break, we had a little bit of trouble getting all the information in at the same time. So I do appreciate it. We'll start with Pullman High School. I've outlined, thanks to Joe, the courses that will not be offered and the courses that would be new for this year. The attachment will show all the classes and courses in their entirety, but this summarizes those changes from this year to next year. So with the courses that are not being offered, and an explanation of why, and then courses that are offered new for 16-17.
Comments, questions, or concerns?
A comment on the following page where it lists all the classes. There's a category here, it says Fine Arts Department. I think it should just say Arts, or it should say Performing and Visual Arts. That would be consistent with the State Board of Education designation. But about half of the arts classes are actually performing.
Oh, the title heading?
Yeah.
Okay. Made a note of that, so
Any other comments, questions?
thank you.
Concerns? All right, if not, we'll go on to the next item. Thank you, Dr. Maxwell, on that. Which is item C, which is LMS course offerings. Dr. Maxwell?
Yes. And with course offerings for the 2016-17 year at Lincoln Middle School, we've listed them out as 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. There are no changes this year, or for next year. So it's the same exact schedule of courses for next year. So there are no changes.
Any comments, questions, or concerns on that?
Do you know which ones of these count as high school credit?
That would be the world language, the algebra, and there's one more. Geometry, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Further comments, questions, or discussion?
Oh, I guess a question. So social studies in 8th grade, is that, when do students take Washington State history? Is that 8th grade?
Typically, that is, I want to say,
It's embedded in,
it's embedded throughout.
in about 3 different courses, is that correct?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not a
It's not a
course,
standalone.
It's not a standalone course.
It's embedded throughout.
Okay. So it's a requirement, it's a graduation requirement that students take Washington State history, but they don't get credit for it. Is that right?
Well, because it's embedded, yeah. I mean, it's not a standalone necessarily, standalone credit, but it's embedded throughout.
Thanks.
Similar to the tribal sovereignty curriculum, it's embedded throughout. So, tribal sovereignty.
Oh.
So,
Tribal sovereignty is a curriculum
yeah,
that's required
Was
by
not
the
even aware of
yeah.
that.
But it's embedded throughout. It's not a standalone course or.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, thank you for that presentation. So we'll move to item D on our agenda, which is high school graduation requirements. Dr. Maxwell?
Yes, this one's a pretty dense document, as you've probably already noticed, and this was paired with 3114, I believe, which was pulled. But in this one, as I believe have spoken over the past 2 years with this is our continuing, evolving graduation requirements with the state of Washington. So this is the latest WASDA update with some suggested changes within. Mainly, the changes are not necessarily in content, but structurally a little more easy to read. And so I've incorporated, for instance, math 3 credits required, social studies 2.5 required for the class of 2015, 3 credits for the class. So it's organized a little bit in a more readable format. In addition, I'm going to scroll down. I want to point out some of the changes. Incorporation of, again, like a chart, it's a little bit easier, and this is all based on WASDA's information. You can see in this next chart, I've stricken as of the class of 2015 culminating project is no longer a state requirement. I've crossed that out because it is one of our district requirements for graduation. So if we left that in, I think it'd be confusing to our parents or anyone else that might be looking at this document. So that's one of the changes. And I believe there was one more. Maybe not. Oh, I think it was in 3114 I had the other change. So since that one was pulled. So again, breaks it out in a little bit of an easier format with some, I think, easy to read charts. And so that is what we're recommending. We've kind of stricken anything that may have been redundant, such as in this paragraph. And this is a companion with 3114, which we will bring back. But I want at least you to have an initial look at this. It is a little bit dense, but again, it's broken out, I think, in a little bit of a easier manner to read and understand.
We just talked about Washington State history and the tribal sovereignty requirements. Would you put a note somewhere in here that those are taken care of?
That are embedded.
Yeah.
We could add language to that.
Well, just because it's supposed to be, isn't it a graduation requirement or something that they have?
I think it's in here somewhere, but.
It's Washington State history. There it is, right there. Tribal sovereignty isn't a requirement for graduation, but it is something that we need to cover as part of the social studies curriculum.
Okay.
So, yeah, right there, Washington State history.
What happens, okay. What happens when someone transfers in high school? Do we have a separate Washington State history class?
Yes, we do. It's, yeah.
I have a similar question, I think, for Joe. Can you explain to me the way health and fitness works? I was there at the freshman orientation, but I didn't totally get it.
So the graduation requirement is,
You want me to scroll down to it?
graduation requirement is 2 full years of health and fitness. 1 semester of that needs to be a health class. Because we've created the new freshman health and fitness class, the year-long course, that's not a semester of PE and a semester of health, but the health and the PE are embedded throughout the whole year. They will pick up that semester of health within that first year of freshman health and fitness.
Okay, so you, just to reiterate, I'm going to bounce back. So the student takes health and fitness their freshman year. They basically, instead of taking 1 semester of health and 1 semester of fitness or vice versa, they take health and fitness and they get them both. So
They'll get, for all intents and purposes, at the end of that year, they have a semester of PE and a semester of health.
that's what I was wondering, how that would appear on your transcript. If you then transferred somewhere, would your health show or vice versa?
Well, yes, it will. It'll still appear as health and fitness, but through the grad requirement tabs on Skyward, we can program it to know that the health requirement is been embedded in those 2 courses.
Okay. So what you first said is 2 full years of health and fitness.
That is correct. 2 full years of health and fitness, which is what it has been forever. It's broken out as a year and a half of PE, 1.5 semesters of PE, a year and a half of PE and a semester of health. So that total time has not changed. The total time requirement has not changed.
But if you took health and fitness your freshman year, that would solve your health requirement.
Correct.
So then, couldn't you just take fitness your second year?
Correct, and then you'd be done.
Okay.
Yes, and then you'd be done.
Okay, that's what I.
Yeah.
So you don't have to take 2 full years of health and fitness. You would only have to take 1 year of health and fitness. Then you could switch to fitness only.
Okay, ask me that again.
Okay, so if a year of health and fitness gives you a semester of health, when you reach your sophomore year, why take health and fitness again? Why not just take fitness?
Well, this is somewhat semantics. Course names. There's a health and fitness department. Okay, within that health and fitness department, you need to take 2 years of that.
Got you.
Okay, within that department. Now, within that department, we have a course called Health and Fitness 1. We have a course called Health and Fitness 2. We have a course called Fitness Only. We have HydroFit. We have weight training.
Okay.
So it's maybe somewhat confusing because there are courses that have the same name as the department.
It was like talking about different offerings within the arts.
Sure.
Not to take 2 credits of
Yeah.
arts.
So by the time a kid in our current system, so current freshmen this year, they hit the end of this year, okay? They have 1 year of PE, I'm not supposed to call it PE anymore, but we all know what that means.
Right.
They have 1 year, don't call it PE. They have 1 year of PE, I'm not gonna call it PE, remaining.
Yes,
And they've already met the health requirement.
okay.
Clear as mud?
It is, no, it was tremendously helpful. I didn't
Yeah.
understand that completely now.
And you know, and if you recall, part of the reason for doing this was to pull that health back to a year where we know it, we hope it's gonna have some real impact on
Right.
kids.
Yeah, okay, good, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, if not, we will move on to letter E under our discussion items, and that is the naming of school facilities. And Dr. Stern is going to present that for us.
We actually had this discussion at the last board meeting, and we went back and had some discussion, and based on that discussion, changed up the executive summary a little bit, added to it, and made some recommendations based on that discussion last meeting. So it's showing up again as a discussion item because the changes were significant enough that we weren't going to ask you to take action on it this time. So we also incorporated the concept of naming a sub-facility, which is really covered by the same policy. And we also incorporated dedication of new facilities, which was a separate policy, and you'll see here in a second that we're suggesting that we combine the dedication policy with within the procedures of, well, policy and procedure of the naming. It's kind of the way WASDA does it, and that's where we got that notion, is seeing what WASDA did. They don't really have a procedure for dedication, but we did, so it was in a separate policy. We just incorporated the procedures in a procedure. I feel like I talked around that in an awkward way, but I saw some nods of heads, so maybe I was making a little bit of sense there. So anyway, what we have is policy 6970, a recommended revision. Procedures, you don't usually vote on those, but I want you to look at them because you have to make the final call on those procedures. And so I suggested accepting those procedures as opposed to approving them. And then we're recommending to remove 6970.1, which is the policy around dedication. So with that, I'm going to minimize that and go to naming of facilities. Not a lot of changes here. We're suggesting, it said after the geography of the area, and I just said, we changed it to characteristics of the geography.
Yeah.
It seemed a little odd to me, at least the way it was. And then the name of our community, I kind of got the notion that there are a lot of names for our community, and we don't, the city is not our school community. So I thought it'd be maybe more clear to just specify that the name is Pullman High School instead of the name of our community. I suppose we could change the name of our community to Three Rivers, and we'd have to change the name of the high school.
You don't need any more discussion.
You can go back to the name of our community, I don't care. I threw in WASDA's language here as well, just so you can see what the language out of the WASDA sample policy is. and added a line from WASDA's policy procedure, or from the procedures from WASDA, actually to incorporate the dedication into the policy there. So there's a reference to the policy that the board will set the date and time for that dedication, and then the procedures will relate to the policy instead of having a new policy. So then let's go to the procedure. Discussion we had last week had to do with the kind of restrictive nature, so we added some flexibility to add to this community, or to this committee if you'd like. Person in charge of the facility, which kind of presumes a principal, but if you don't have a facility, you wouldn't have a principal yet, so, or perhaps the person in charge of planning the facility, which could be a planning principal that you identify, or a planning person that's in charge of the project. And then for staff member, we suggested, instead of a member of the faculty, again, we have a facility that doesn't have a faculty, so it could be a potential staff member if the facility does not exist. And then this is current language here. I think you could have a student, I'm jumping back to this list, I think you could have a student that doesn't attend the school to be on the committee. It doesn't specify that, so I think that's okay. Let's see. .0 is current language. And then the committee is to submit to the board recommended names along with a brief rationale for the name. I just suggested that there ought to be a list, that there ought to not just come one name to you, otherwise you're not making the decision. It's already been made for you, so I said at least 3 and no more than 6. The board will consider the recommendations along with written rationale. I added that because I think you want that rationale to. And then I added our current, this is really our, let's see, is this our current? Yes, that's our current in policy. That's the language. Yeah, this is the language that's in 6970.1.
Right.
And we've just incorporated it into the procedure here. And then for your consideration, we just added the language from WASDA, so you can do a comparison. So there was an attempt at least to bring in some of the discussion from last week around this.
Did we discuss, was there a discussion on whether the person should be living or must be dead?
That's in the WASDA.
It's in the WASDA.
Okay.
I didn't want to mess with our current too much other than the discussion we had, but you know, that's something that we that was specified in the WASDA.
It's a notable difference, and I think it's
More, yeah.
I'm trying to find it.
It's,
That's right, that's what we, yeah.
It's on
That's, yeah.
6970, page 2A, or B3, the use of names of living persons.
be avoided unless circumstances.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we
there's
will,
so much potential there.
I'll ask Paula to make a note that we want to, that will incorporate
WASDA's.
B3 on page 2 of 2 of 6970P into the main body of the procedures.
Just to point out the policy, 6970, number 3.0 says individuals should be retired and not actively working in education or related fields.
In the procedure.
In selecting names.
Policy, I think.
Yeah.
Policy.
Packet page 69.
So you're at 6970.
It says, under the policy, it does say, should be retired and not actively,
Oh, yes.
I think, we wanted.
So we want to make the two consistent.
Okay.
So if you make a note of that, we don't have to work the language right now. What's that?
We want them not, but we want them permanently retired, right? Terminally retired.
That's what I'm hearing, and we will make it consistent between the two. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think I do recall that we had that discussion, and I didn't get it in my notes, I apologize for that.
Any further comments, questions?
I wonder if we need the sentence, the high school will retain the name Pullman High School.
I wondered that too, because it seems very odd and out of, I mean, what if you have two high schools eventually?
Right,
or-
I mean, that's what occurred to me is, I mean, are we thinking?
Sure, school one, school two, PHS one, PHS.
Well.
That'd be the New York system.
Yeah.
It just seemed,
Pullman 1,
it
Pullman 2.
didn't, I just don't think we really need that in this.
So strike that whole sentence.
That whole sentence is not adding anything.
It seems like it was very old language that somehow worked its way in for some
Yes.
particular reason.
Yes, agreed.
All right, we'll take that out.
Did you get a note of that? Thank you.
Okay, anything else that you want us to change?
For now,
All right, we'll make those changes and bring it back.
thank you.
Thank you for looking that over.
Yeah, that is the hot topic. Name, everybody wants to know what the new elementary is going to be named, so.
Well, I think, yeah, and think how much input we've received about the auditorium.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You have Allison be the board representative on that meeting.
And we're gonna take care of all the nasty business while being as president.
Thank you very much.
Because you handle it so well.
Much respect, Dean.
Okay, are we finished with that? We are. We'll come back at our next meeting and we can yay or nay. Last item on our agenda is informational items for everyone to peruse if they'd like to. Get you information on administrative requirement updates and the board calendar, of course. And if there's no objections, we are going to recess our regular meeting and move into an executive and closed session, both one for bargaining and the other for personnel evaluations. Should last approximately 1/2 hour. No decisions will be made. So we are in recess.
Okay.